When people think Saudi Arabia, they often think oil. Rightfully so. As the world's largest crude oil exporter, the Arabian giant outputs 4 billion barrels of petroleum every year, 11% of the world's total production. Oil accounts for around 75% of Saudi government revenues and 42% of the nation's GDP. Saudi Arabia is truly dependent on the natural resource. However, this is neither healthy nor sustainable. At current extraction rates, Saudi Arabia will run out of oil in roughly 60 years. This has put the Saudi monarchy in a pickle. To secure its nation's future and maintain its global relevancy, it must quickly reduce its dependency on oil. To kickstart this transformation, in 2016, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, or MBS, announced Vision 2030, a strategic plan to diversify Saudi Arabia's economy and propel itself into the future by investing in its infrastructure, education, technology, healthcare, and tourism sectors. Then, in October 2017, as the centerpiece of Vision 2030, MBS announced plans for a 26,000 square kilometer, $500 billion special economic zone located in northwest Saudi Arabia, near the borders with Egypt and Jordan. The project, called NEOM, would serve as a high-tech city of the future, drawing in investment and economic activity into Saudi Arabia. For a few years, though, no project details were released. Then, in January 2021, MBS announced The Line, a plan for a 170-kilometer-long belt-shaped city cutting across NEOM, stretching from the Straits of Tiran to the region's upper valley. The metropolis would be a series of city nodes connected by logistics and transport infrastructure hidden underground. However, on July 25, 2022, these plans were scrapped, and an even more ambitious version of The Line was unveiled. Like the original concept, The Line 2.0 calls for a 170-kilometer-long linear city stretching across NEOM. However, instead of a 2D belt of individual city modules, it calls for a continuous, three-dimensional skyscraper city, shooting 500 meters into the sky and spanning 200 meters across. The city would consist of two adjacent walls of stacked urban space with a mirror glass facade on the outside and suspended walkways and public parks on the inside. The city would be run on 100% renewable energy, would have no roads, cars, or emissions, and all facilities would be located within a 5-minute walk. Artificial intelligence would automate services, world-class healthcare would help people live longer, and expansive parks would provide beautiful living spaces. Lastly, to transport people along the city, a high-speed rail line would be installed, with end-to-end commute times of only 20 minutes. Saudi Arabia is optimistic about the line. It claims its 3D design, which is catered for people rather than cars and machines, will revolutionize urban living. And with its location along one of the world's busiest shipping channels and its proximity to Africa, Europe, and Asia, it expects it to serve as a world-class global hub. By 2030, it predicts the line will generate 380,000 jobs and add $48 billion to the country's GDP. By 2045, it envisions the city hosting a population of 9 million people. In addition to the line, Saudi Arabia has revealed 2 other ambitious megaprojects in NEOM. Along NEOM's southern coast, it has revealed Oxagon, a huge 7-kilometer-wide floating port city that will serve as the region's industrial powerhouse. And 50 kilometers from the coast, it has unveiled Trojena, a plan for a world-class mountain tourist destination with an artificial lake, skiing, rock climbing, and a futuristic village called The Vault. Clearly, NEOM is a very ambitious project, but behind all of its glamour and promises, the project has a list of problems. Before we continue, let me introduce this video's sponsor, NordVPN. The internet is not a safe space. When surfing the web, you leave traces behind that make you vulnerable to cyber criminals. For example, in a man-in-the-middle attack, hackers position themselves between you and whoever you're interacting with, where they can manipulate the flow of information and wait for the perfect time to strike. With NordVPN, a world-renowned virtual private network, your internet traffic is routed through an encrypted connection to a VPN server, blocking out third parties and protecting you from such attacks. In addition, the service has a list of other cool benefits. With it, you can connect to servers around the world, allowing you to access foreign streaming content and to avoid price discrimination, saving money on flights, hotels, and rentals. NordVPN is clean, simple, and fast, and starting at just $3 a month is incredibly affordable. And even better, by using code Futurology at the link in the description, you get 4 months free on a 2-year plan. With Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee, it's risk-free. Thank you to NordVPN, and now back to the video. While NEOM looks amazing in the renders, the project is riddled with issues. First of all, the line's design is highly flawed. While its linear shape does allow for efficient one-dimensional transport, it violates basic laws of efficiency. If you look at most cities in the world, they all have a general shape, the circle. Not to get into the mathematics, but much of the reason for this is because the circle is the most efficient shape at maximizing the proximity of points inside of it. A line is the polar opposite. Say you're living in the line and you want to visit a friend that lives on the opposite end, 170 kilometers away. If the city's footprint was condensed into a circle, that friend would be at most only 7 kilometers away. This inefficient shape, combined with the fact that the line runs straight through a mountain range, makes it highly illogical. On top of this shape inefficiency, the 3D design is unheard of. It looks cool, but that's where things stop. The whole premise of it is to save on space efficiency. But what is the purpose of space efficiency when you are building in an open desert? In addition, the structural issues presented by building a 170-kilometer-long, 500-meter-tall skyscraper and then stacking several layers of urban space inside of it are immense. Most importantly though, how do you build and finance such a megastructure? Cost estimates go into the trillions, and the amount of raw materials, logistics, and labor needed to construct such a structure are enormous. Even if the line was built, more problems would pop up. The city's 3D design would leave much of its interior completely devoid of sunlight, and thousands of energy-draining elevators and escalators would be needed to move people up and down. Furthermore, relying on only one transport line is a bad idea. If an issue sprung up, the city's entire transport infrastructure could be paralyzed. Looking further out, how will you keep the structure cool? How will it manage wind stress? And what about its effects on wildlife? Aside from flawed design, the city promises are unrealistic. Renders display luscious public parks filled with greenery, waterfalls, and open-air pools. But where would all this water come from? The city is being built in the middle of a desert in one of the most water-scarce countries in the world. Moreover, the population targets are incredibly ambitious. Who is going to move there? To achieve 9 million people, Saudi Arabia would have to forcibly relocate 25% of its population to the line. And while it expects to attract the best and the brightest from around the world, this is very skeptical. After all, Saudi Arabia is notorious for its gender discrimination, lack of free speech, religious persecution, and other human rights issues. Promotional videos also hint at video surveillance throughout the city. Definitely not attractive. Looking past the line, Oxagon and Trojena are also flawed. Oxagon is advertised as the world's largest floating structure that will represent harmony between humanity and nature. But why build an expensive, weather-vulnerable floating city and port that will disrupt marine life when you can build a much cheaper city on land? Looking at Trojena, its artificial lake with no natural water supply would quickly dry up in the desert heat. In summary, NEOM is filled with issues. It looks incredible in the renders, but the reality of it is much different. While I am a huge fan of ambitious megaprojects, especially those promoting sustainability, NEOM has taken it too far. Its design and vision seem to have been clouded by the hubris and wealth of the Saudi royal family. Wherever possible, luxurious, impractical elements have been incorporated into the city's design. On the internet, the royal family has been eager to spread this vision. They have spent millions of dollars advertising NEOM with promotional videos, garnering tens of millions of views on YouTube and other platforms. This opulence is also reflected on the ground. So far, a few projects have taken off in NEOM, including a local airport and some hotel resorts. But the biggest project by far is a massive 2-square-kilometer complex for the royal family, featuring several palaces and an 18-hole golf course. The whole project seems like more of an effort to gain attention and improve Saudi Arabia's public image than to actually build an efficient and well-designed city. This situation is quite unfortunate, as NEOM has the potential to be a major source of positivity for Saudi Arabia. Efforts to reduce dependency on oil, build a green, sustainable future, and become more socially tolerant can only be applauded. But when these efforts come in the form of a flawed megaproject clouded by the hubris of an authoritarian monarchy, the appeal is lost. Hopefully, the monarchy and NEOM's developers will take a good hard look at their plans and change them into something that is still modern and futuristic, but also feasible, sustainable, and cost-efficient. Whether this happens or not, we will just have to wait and see.